Hello, everybody, and welcome to the next lesson. We're going to look here, as you can see above. We're going to consider grammar, unreal conditions, conditionals, feelings, vocabulary, dealing with feelings, lots of great vocabulary, and then word stress with long words. Which stress do we place where when we're dealing with very long words in English? Honestly, there's a lot here. So what I want you to do is, first of all, don't panic. See this as an opportunity to learn and focus on those areas that you're weakest in. It might be the conditionals. It might be all of the colorful new vocabulary that you'll be introduced to in this meeting, or it might be both. And if it's both, pick your battles wisely. If you pick your battles wisely, that means pick and choose what you want to learn. Prioritize your learning. We can't learn it all the time. So part of being a good student and improving quickly is knowing what's most important and focusing on those things. And only you can answer that question. But I can say that conditionals, especially the second conditional, is used a lot. So if all things are equal, you probably want to focus on second conditional rather than third or the new vocabulary. If you have time for everything, of course, do it. So let's get started with a this first part in speaking is something. I'm going to read the quote, though, here at the top. It says, survival can be summed up in 3 words. Never give up. The minute you give up, if survival is on the line, of course, that means you probably won't make it. If somebody doesn't make it, it means they died. That's the heart of it, really. Just keep trying. And I suppose that's a lesson for life, isn't it? When people stop trying, life sort of stops, doesn't it? Now, the good news is you're trying because you're taking the course. You want to improve your skills in order to better your life. So that's great. Let's get started. They offer in this first speaking a very dreary, pretty sad options here. How do you think you would feel in each situation? This is great for talking with a speaking partner. I'm going to look at number 5. What would you do? Look, these are great. So talk to your speaking partner. We can obviously talk about this in the live. And the reason these are so good is, one, they can happen to us. We don't want them to, but they can, and they do, some of them. But secondly, more importantly for us, this is an opportunity to practice first, second, and third conditionals, actually second and third conditionals. So this is great practice. Let's look at the 5th one. I'll talk about this one. What would you do if you were hiking alone in the hills and got completely lost and there was no phone signal? I've been completely lost a few times. And the temptation is to lose hope pretty quickly because everywhere you turn, there's no clue as to where you're at. And this is a pretty hopeless situation. Here are the options. I'd stay where I was and wait to be rescued. I'd keep walking and try to find my way to my destination. Or C, I'd try to find my way back to where I started. I would probably opt for B or C. Waiting somewhere without a signal, if it's not likely people are around, I'm not sure I want to do that. So I would probably opt for B and C. C is going to be difficult. If you're lost, you probably don't, you have a general direction where you came from, but maybe not completely. So it might, I'm not sure, I might keep walking, but it depends on how big the area is. What would you do? Completely lost in the hills. Geez. Yeah, I think they caution you to stay still. I think that's the best advice, and wait for help. But that seems really passive, not active, and I would be very nervous about that. We have something with skiing as well, and falling through ice is a very, very, difficult situation. And here you have not days or hours, but you have minutes and seconds. So I think that's a much more serious situation to consider. So look at these, really interesting to get some of your perspectives, and you can use these conditionals. So let me just practice. So if I were in the middle of a forest and lost, I would probably keep walking in the same direction, whatever that was, assuming I knew how big the area was. If I don't know how big the area was, I might try to return home, return back wherever I think that is. Again, when you're lost, it's a little bit difficult. It's a little bit like being in a cave. They say scuba divers say that the most dangerous situation to be in is in a cave underwater, because you lose your sense of direction and equilibrium, and suddenly you are completely lost. You have no idea where you're at. And I guess you have a little of that on land when you're in the middle of a forest and everything looks the same. All right, let's move on to something more cheerful. Vocabulary and pronunciation. We're going to talk about feelings. We're going to look at the vocabulary bank. Okay, I was going through this, and here's my advice to you, because there's a lot of new words, I think. Words that, now here's how I define new. Not have you ever heard of that word, have you ever used it? Not have you ever read it, have you ever spoken it or written it? That's what I understand as do you know it. If you're actively using the word, then you know it. If you haven't used the word, you might know what it means, but it's not active. So I consider that still a word you don't know because you haven't used it. So here's what I would do. Here's what I do when I'm learning languages, even English. I write words down that I don't use, that I haven't used. And I make it a point, I try to use it at the earliest opportunity. Now, here in this course, you have a great opportunity to use it. You make a list, you find your speaking partner, and you use a few of these. You just check them off like a checklist. Or during the live, you wait for your question. You say, all right, I'm gonna use one of these adjectives in my next answer. And if you're not sure, of course, then you can ask me. So I'm scared stiff. If you're scared stiff, stiff means you don't move. You're like this. You're scared and you can't move. Some people, when they're scared, are scared stiff. They just freeze. Other people run. It depends how we're made up, but we have these options. I'm shattered. Okay, glass shatters. So if a ball hits a glass, glass can shatter. That's the most natural understanding of shatter. Glass shatters. Windows can shatter. I'm looking through a window now. It's not shattered, and I hope it never will be. But if you're shattered, this is British, and the Americans don't use this. This is British English. I'm absolutely shattered means, you're going to see below, I'll tell you though, very, very tired. You need to go to sleep. Gutted, gobsmacked. Gutted is very British. Scared stiff is both American and British. I'm a bit down as American and British. I'm sick of hearing American and British, but shattered and gutted are quintessentially, uniquely British phrases that you don't hear much in America. I'm gutted, meaning I'm really disappointed. I'm really disappointed. I'm absolutely gutted. All right. Yeah, so just wanted to give you a little bit of context for those words. And then we are going to listen to a very tragic story. I decided to keep, it's reading, listening, and I want to keep this exercise, even though it's a bit long, the homework's a bit long. This story is really traumatic, but let's go through the answers here. I'll help you. The Amazon rainforest. So this story takes place in the Amazon. So let's just learn some vocabulary. The Amazon rainforest is in the continent of South America. It is roughly the size of Australia. So I'll give you these words here. It covers a total of 9 countries, including Brazil, Bolivia, Peru, they say Peru, I think in the Spanish, Ecuador, Colombia, we say Colombia, Venezuela, Guyana, Suriname, French Guiana. The River Amazon, which flows through the north of the forest, is the second longest river in the world. Do you know the longest river? It's in Africa. The Nile. The Nile, I think, is the longest. The tree canopy is so thick that the forest floor is always dark. In other words, no sunlight hits the ground. It's so dense. We say dense. If the forest is dense, it means there's so many trees, there's no sunlight penetrating the forest. So the ground's always dark. Some trees grow up to 60 meters high. There are about 50 indigenous tribes. Indigenous means local to that area. They've always been there and they haven't left. Tribes, so 50 different tribes, people groups living in the forest that have never had any contact with the outside world. Some of the most dangerous animals in the world live in the forest. These include poisonous snakes, frogs, and spiders, as well as jaguars and piranhas. Sounds like a very risky business, and it was indeed risky for the three men we're going to read about, and it's a tragic ending for two of them. So here we have the story. I want to let you read this, actually. It's quite these stories are really touching. I want to just talk about the vocabulary, and then you can entertain yourself with the story, and then listen to the audio messages, the listening files, because they're actually quite interesting, and obviously you're going to learn something. The remote area of Bolivia. Something that's remote is far away. If you have remote work, you're far away from work. I work remotely. I work at home or far, not in the office. Now, it says here, then they would raft nearly 200 kilometers. Rafting is a noun. A raft is a small boat that normally is blown up with air. That's a raft. Here it's used as a verb. They would raft. So it's used as a noun and a verb. They would raft nearly 200 kilometers or kilometers, if you're American, back downriver. Downriver means you're going with the current. That, in theory, is much easier than going upriver. When you're going against the current, it's much slower and much more difficult. The four men set off. I have set off here underlined below as well. Set off means to begin your trip, to leave. From the town of Apollo, and soon they had left civilization far behind. When you leave civilization, it means you're out in the wilderness, far from other people. Now, two of these guys, Yossi and Kevin, got fed up. If you get fed up, you are what? Yeah, you're tired of something or someone. You're irritated. You say, oh, stop it. You're fed up. Eventually, they decided to abandon the search. When you abandon something, you stop, you quit. We abandoned the search. We couldn't find anything. We abandoned the business. People abandon their homes. In case of natural disasters, they just leave them. They flee for safer areas. And then finally, oh, that's it. So we have these very interesting phrases that you can look at, and hopefully it'll help you understand the passage. Now, you're going to listen to this story, 5:8, 5:9, then we go down here to 5:10, 11, 12. We got a lot here. Yossi's spirits. How did his spirits change? So I'm in good spirits doesn't mean I'm drinking alcohol, although that's a spirit as well. I'll have a spirit. That's considered an alcoholic beverage, normally a strong liquor. But good spirits means I'm positive, I'm optimistic. If your spirits change, it means your mood changes. And find out why it changed. All right, some really interesting stuff. I'm going to let you listen to that because it's great. Great copy. That's what you use for a book that's really interesting. This is actually great listening. All right, now we're going to look at grammar, the unreal conditionals, the second and third conditional. Unreal. What would you do if you, how would we finish that? If you were hiking, you're not, but if you were hiking alone in the hills and you got lost, what would you do? If I thought that I could hear an intruder in my house, I would call the police and I wouldn't confront the intruder. All right, you can do the other two. Well, actually, number 3 now goes to the third conditional. What would you have done, so past, present perfect, if you had been in Yossi's situation? So that's you're considering a situation in the past. So we use the third conditional. If you had been in his situation, and then finally, if Kevin hadn't looked for his friend, Yossi would have died. So we have here hadn't looked, past perfect. So then we need present perfect, would have died. So the would have died. All right. Very good. Now let's go to the grammar. Got a lot of grammar to cover here. Unreal conditionals. Let's just go through them together. I'm going to read these to you. So second conditional, if plus the past simple, then on the second side, the main sentence is would or wouldn't plus infinitive. So the if clause is never the complete sentence. This is the complete sentence right here. If there was a fire in this hotel, it would be very difficult to escape. I wouldn't have a car if I didn't live in the country. So we use, here's number 1. So let's look at the rule associated. We use second conditional sentences to talk about hypothetical or imaginary situations in the present or future and their consequences. They probably won't happen, but it's possible. If it wasn't raining so hard, we could get to the top of the mountain. In the if clause, you can use the past continuous. In the other clause, excuse me, you can use could or might instead of would. If it wasn't raining, currently now it's currently raining. So wasn't raining is not real. We could get to the top. We would get to the top. We could get to the top. Here, could is actually, I think, a bit better, but both are fine. And finally, if I were you, this is very common. People ask you for advice. We use the second conditional. If I were you, I would make Jimmy wear a helmet when he's cycling. So if Dan were here, I prefer were. We've talked about this, not in this class, but I prefer were. I don't like if Dan was here, although if there's a greater chance that he's here, that he does come, maybe, but I prefer if Dan were here. That's the normal conditional tense, but both are fine, I guess. He would know what to do. All right. However, in conditionals beginning, if I were you, to give advice, we always use were. So if I were you, I wouldn't go. If I were you, I would study English seriously. That's true. Third conditional, now we get to the past perfect. And this one sometimes scares us. I don't know why, but it scares us. But we're talking about an unreal situation in the past. So we have to use the past perfect after the if to tell the reader or listener that it's in the past. This isn't a current dilemma that's unreal. It's in the past and it's unreal. If they had found the river sooner, they would all have survived. So we have the past perfect here, the if, past perfect, and then here's the main clause with would have survived. We have the would plus past participle. Now we've reversed it in the second one. I wouldn't have got lost. Here's the past perfect. If I hadn't taken the wrong path. So if we go over here to the, let's look at the, here are the rules. We use third conditional to talk about a hypothetical past. I've already mentioned that. Let's look at number 2. He wouldn't have died if he hadn't been, he would have died if he hadn't been wearing a helmet. If the weather had been better, I might have arrived earlier. So you can also use could have and might have. You don't always have to say would. So would have, could have, might have in these sentences, just like could, would, and might in second conditional. Now here we have a situation where we must question, is it second or third conditional? And basically it depends on, is it now, an unreal situation now, so it's second conditional, or the past, third conditional. Look at this. If you came to class more often, now, you would probably pass the exam. You're not coming more, you're not coming to class now, so that's why I make it second conditional. Now, this is in the past. If you had come, but you didn't, you hadn't, but we say didn't. If you had come to class more often, you would probably have passed the exam. So we compare the two conditionals. You can see the difference in meaning here. All right. Mixed conditionals is just that. On one side, you have one conditional, on the other, a difference. So sometimes we mix second and third conditionals. If a hypothetical situation in the past has a present or future consequence, you wouldn't be so tired now, you're tired now, but if you had gone to bed earlier, that's in the past, because that's last night. If you had gone to bed earlier, you wouldn't be so tired now. So we have the past perfect and this would in the present. If he really loved you, he would have asked you to marry him. All right, now you've got some homework connected to this. Take this seriously, and we're going to practice this in the live. 100% certain we're going to practice this. And if we go back, I think that's it. You've got some things here with a partner. Talk about some things. Use the second conditional. And you can use a story chain. So you can do one with second conditional, one with third conditionals, and use it as a game. And I think we're going to play this game when we meet for the live. All right, lots of studying, happy studying, and we'll speak to you very soon. Bye-bye.